This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. For the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates around the world. Our email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website is www.xzoneradiotv.com. My first guest tonight, X-Zone Nation, is Bob Schroeder. He is the author of a book entitled Solving the UFO Enigma, How Modern Physics is Revealing the Technology of UFOs. The book focuses on the evolution of modern physics and how recent theories are pointing toward a possible explanation of UFO technology. Joining me now is Bob Schroeder. And Bob, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for having me on the show.
Great pleasure. Tell me, how did you get involved in the world of UFOs?
Okay. Actually, way back in 1957, I was 11 years old, and my family, we lived in Teaneck, New Jersey, which is just a couple miles west of New York City. And what happened, Rob, is one day, like many kids, I was standing out in my front yard. It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, early November in 1957, and I was looking up in the sky, a clear blue sky, but I was kind of hoping to see airplanes. And I come from a family of scientists and engineers, so I've always had an interest in airplanes, spaceships, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so I'm looking up at the sky, and coming up over the roof of my house was an object, a cylindrical-shaped object, gold in color, definitely metallic, up about 5,000 feet. And the house was just blocking my visibility. But as I watched, this thing was with its the long end pointing toward New York City, was heading directly east. And I looked at this, and I had very good eyesight. I just started wearing glasses recently, but as a kid, I definitely didn't wear them. And but anyway, I'm looking at this thing, and I could clearly see that the front end and the back end were just cut off. They were just squared off, and I could see that it was cylindrical, the way the shading was. But then, as I watched it, I saw another object behind it, just a round object that was no wider than the narrow width of the cylinder. And at this point, Rob, I have to admit that I was completely baffled. I had no idea what this thing could be. And I watched it and for a few minutes, and it was just going fairly leisurely. And at that point, I ran inside the house to get some of my brothers and sisters. I have 5 brothers and sisters, and I got a couple of them to come out, and they saw it too as it disappeared over the trees. But years later, maybe 2 or 3 years later, I started reading books about UFOs, and I read Major Donald Kehoe, and he was a major in the U.S. Air Force, and he wrote a couple of books on the UFO phenomenon. Well, to make a long story short, one of the things that he mentioned was that in November of 1957, there was a gigantic wave of UFOs across the entire United States. And I suddenly made the connection. What I saw was probably a UFO. Then a little bit later, I read about a French guy who had seen a cylindrical-shaped UFO where typical disc-shaped UFOs popped out one end of the cylinder, and he watched it. It was in the evening. He was out walking his dog, and he saw this gigantic cylinder. He thought it was easily half-mile to three-quarters of a mile in length, and as he watched it, Rob, one after another, these typical disc-shaped UFOs popped out the bottom, one by one. They would circle around a couple times around the cylinder and then shoot off in one direction of the compass, then another direction of the compass, and so on. And instantly, I made the connection. I realized what I had seen was probably one of these carrier or motherships, I think as they're referred to, and it was being followed by a typical disc-shaped UFO.
All right, Bob, we've got to take our first 2-minute commercial break. Interesting story. I want to hear the rest of it when we come back.
Okay.
Exonation, Bob Schroeder is our very special guest. He's the author of Solving the UFO Enigma, How Modern Physics is Revealing the Technology of UFOs. His book is available on Amazon.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Bob Schroeder and I will return on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, Then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Welcome back, everyone. Bob Schroeder is our special guest this hour. We're talking to Bob about his new book. It's entitled Solving the UFO Enigma, How Modern Physics is Revealing the Technology of UFOs, and it is available on Amazon.com. Bob, please, if you don't mind, continue about your story and your quest to find out what it was that you saw in the sky. When last we were speaking, before we went to the break, you had heard a story or read an account of someone who was French who basically had the same kind of experience that you did?
That's right, except, Rob, in his case, in the case of the Frenchman, he actually observed the UFOs, the typical disc-shaped UFOs popping out of one end of the cylindrical UFO, probably what they call a mothership. And so when I had seen it, I only saw the cylinder and then the disc-shaped UFO following it in tandem, so at the time I really didn't know what it was, but later on I realized after reading about the UFO phenomenon that there was a connection between the disc-shaped objects and the cylinders. And they come in various shapes too. That happens to be one shape, but I know I've heard stories of these gigantic spheres, and then smaller objects will come out of those as well. And so that kind of, that sort of thing got me very, very excited because, Rob, when I saw this thing, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, or at least when I remembered it later,
right.
I realized that there's no question that we are being visited by, in my opinion, some kind of extraterrestrial craft. And probably not from just one civilization, but probably from hundreds, probably thousands.
Let me ask you this, Bob. If we are being visited, how come everyone isn't seeing these UFOs? That it seems to be a select group that has the opportunity or the good fortune to actually see these UFOs.
Actually, I think many, many more people are seeing UFOs than report them. And I have to make a confession here. Even though I saw that UFO in 1957, and I did see another one probably 3.5 decades later up in Massachusetts, in neither case did I report it. And here I am, very interested in the UFO phenomenon, and I didn't report it. And so I think there's a huge number of people out there that have seen strange things, but they've never reported it. And so, in fact, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, he was the director of Project Blue Book the scientific advisor to Project Blue Book for the United States Air Force that was investigating the UFO phenomenon. And he said essentially the same thing. The vast majority of UFO sightings are never reported. It's only a few people, a small percentage, he thought probably 2 or 3% that actually go to the trouble to report them. And
why do you think that is?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, part of it is who do you report it to, and then like if you report it to your local police department, odds are, it's just going to go into the circular bin, and the circular file, and if you go to the Air Force, they no longer take UFO reports. So that leaves private organizations, and most people are not familiar with those private organizations like NUFORC, the National UFO Reporting Center out in Washington State.
Sure, Peter Davenport.
Exactly. Yeah. And now I happen to know about it, and you know about it, but probably the average person doesn't. And